Hello, I'm Karen Long, President and founder of Streamline Government Contracts. Streamline helps small to mid-sized government contractors who seek experienced, effective support with contract management that will help reduce risks, increase profits, and enhance your reputation. We do this by negotiating teaming agreements, subcontracts, preparing estimates at completion, and communicating with the contracting officer in their own language. We are the proud sponsors of Government Contractor Chat. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everyone. I am Lindsay Riegelsberger, Operations Manager and Marketing Specialist for Streamline Government Contracts. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker now. Shirley Collier, President of Scale to Market, LLC, and host of Growth Masters Federal Podcast, is a technology entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience in strategic planning, federal business development management, organizational transformation, and executive mentoring. She started, grew, and sold 4 businesses and now helps other small GovCon's grow and prosper in this complex, highly regulated, but opportunity-rich federal marketplace. Without further ado, please welcome Shirley Collier.
Thank you. I'm going to be talking about strategic planning today, and I know that some of the businesses that are represented today are really tiny, but what I want to assure you is that you're never too small to think strategically. So, sometimes I talk to small businesses and they think, oh, strategic planning is kind of fancy, or it's a nice to have, or it's something that only large companies do, but nothing could be further from the truth. Sometimes small businesses say, and I think I even heard it on some of the introductions, I just want to win a contract. But if you think of your business model as a pyramid, strategic planning is at the base of that pyramid, and it is upon which other things in your company will build. So what we're going to be talking about here are the 5 ways that small companies especially strategize. So there are going to be 5 areas here, and you will see that they are interrelated to one another. So I broke it out into 5 different aspects, but it all integrates together into strategic thinking. So as I am speaking, if you hear something that you just have a burning question about, please unmic yourself and interrupt me. Okay. You will not offend me. Or if you want to put your questions in the chat feature, we'll address those at the very end. But my presentation is going to be relatively brief. I want to introduce these topics, but mainly I want to get your feedback. I want to make sure that I'm addressing those things that are important to you in this topic area. So the very first thing to think about as a small business owner is to know where you want to go. And you would think that most small business owners would say, well, sure, I know exactly where I want to go, but that's not usually the case. Many times a small business is formed because there is a very specific opportunity that is presented. They're either working for the government and they see an opportunity to form a company and then go back to the government and sell their services, or they're working for a larger company and they see an opportunity to maybe spin out an 8A or women-owned small business, and they're given that work. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is a good place to start. But at some point, you have to, meaning the CEO, you really have to have a very clear statement of how your company is perceived in the market, or how you want it to be perceived in the market. And by that, I mean, are you low cost, high quality? Are you an IT firm, cybersecurity? There's different aspects of cybersecurity. Are you a staffing company? Do you do program management? Are you a subject matter expert in some area? It is not at all unusual when companies first start is that they'll do anything for anybody. You just want to get revenue in. I understand, I've been in your shoes. But to really grow in the marketplace, the way to think strategically about growing in the marketplace is to differentiate yourself. And I'm so glad that Mark Emtower is in this conversation too, because that's one of his areas of specialty, is making sure that your differentiators are very clear and to leverage LinkedIn. So Mark, if you want to, as we go forward, if you want to jump in with some ideas, please feel free to do so.
Well, you tell me when you need me. Okay.
Okay. I will. And I'm going to be talking about differentiators in a minute, so I'll call upon you to help.
You got it.
Good. So having that clear statement, and this is not, I put this as one of the first things that you need to do, but in actuality, having that clear statement comes after you address the other 4 areas of strategy development. But I put this here because I want CEOs of small businesses to think about that deeply. Who are we really, and how do we want to be perceived in the marketplace? And who cares? Who cares about that? So what are the programs, the agencies, the individuals in the government who care about your area of specialty? One of the things that I coach my clients about in these very early stages of strategy development is, what are they really, really good at? Not just what are they doing right now for an agency, but given their druthers, how can they leverage their expertise? And many of my clients, like those of you who are represented on the call, you have technical backgrounds. And maybe the work that you have been doing is only leveraging a portion of what you really could do. So thinking about that, what are you really, really good at, and what are you passionate about? You absolutely have to decide at some point. So when you first get into business, you'll do anything for anybody, but you learn from those assignments. And that's why I want you to be thinking strategically. It's not just going where the opportunities present, although there's nothing wrong with being market driven. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But at some point, you will need to specialize. Going deep is how you grow in the federal marketplace. Mark, do you want to comment on that?
When, especially in the area of IT, cyber in particular, when Shirley, when we were early in the market, government security or computer security was one big blob. Now it's about 250 different specialty areas. So if you're a small company, what is your ultimate skill? How are you differentiating in the materials that you're sharing on your profile and in your proposals? Even in your capabilities statement, when you're going after a particular piece of work, differentiate yourself as narrowly as possible to fit the bid.
Yes, absolutely. I would also add to that if you have a CAPE statement, a website, or on your SAM profile, and you have 30 NAICS codes, you're not doing yourself any favors, because it undermines your credibility. They know that you're a small business. You're not Booz Allen. You can't do things in 30 NAICS codes. So find the 5, 6, 8, that you can really, really do well and concentrate on those. And your credibility is very important, especially as you're when you first start out. Okay, the next aspect of strategic planning is to use data. So what agencies are buying what you're selling? And it's not so easy to determine that, but there's a lot of public information. So looking at procurement forecast, budgets, expiring contracts, conducting market research, and old-fashioned conversations. If you're already doing work in an agency and you have some relationships there, either with other contractors or with people in the federal government, government employees, just ask them about what's coming up. What are their hot points? What are some of their issues? What are they looking at for next year's budget? Just having those types of conversations, not in a salesy way, in a way of genuinely wanting to help your client, is one way to get that data. The other thing to look at is from whom are they currently buying what you are selling. So you want to look at the ecosystem around these agencies, and there are vendor ecosystems, primes and subs and influencers and regulatory agencies and so forth. If you're focusing on a specific agency, let's say it's DHS, some areas of DHS may be Custom and Border Patrol, there are swarms of vendors that that focus on those agencies and departments, and you need to be familiar with that. So who are the incumbents? Who are the interested vendors? What are the contract vehicles that those agencies and departments typically use? And attend industry days. Attend the industry days that are put on by the agencies. There are ones that are out there that are put on by commercial companies. Nothing wrong with that, but I find that there are not as many government people that attend the ones that are industry driven, as opposed to the ones that are agency driven. So attending industry days, you can learn a lot. Then the next question, oops, sorry, meant to adjust that slide. The next question to ask yourself is, will they buy from you? So they're currently buying from a competitor most of the time. For the types of work that we're talking about that I heard represented in the attendees today, IT types of contracts, those are ongoing contracts. They are probably already buying from someone else. What will make that agency buy from you and not from the incumbent? So why would they buy from you, and can you make money? Is there margin? There is such a thing as bad work, unprofitable contracts. And Tim, I'm so glad to see that you are on the call as well today, representing an accounting firm. So profitability is extraordinarily important. You will learn that also as you grow your company. It's very expensive to propose to go after work, and sometimes small businesses are tempted to go in with very, very low bids. You can actually be disqualified by having an unrealistically low bid, which a lot of small businesses don't realize that. That just indicates to the agency that you are not really tuning into the nature of the work, the scope of the work, the complexity. But at some point, you need to kind of shift from low cost, in my opinion, shift from low cost to value-based, and to really assess profitability before submitting a proposal. Okay, so the next aspect of strategic planning is to carve out a niche. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. It's one of the hardest things that small contractors do because they're thinking, I can do a little bit of everything, kind of hedge my bets and grow in a number of different areas, but that's not the way that it works. The marketplace is highly competitive. So you're going to be competing against people who are very, very good in specific area that the solicitation is requiring. So you definitely want to carve out a niche for yourself. I alluded to this a little bit earlier, and make sure that it is something that agencies value. So, for example, if you are very good at 8-track cassette tapes, which I hope that some of you on the call remember 8-track tape cassettes, you could be very, very good at manufacturing those, but there's no market for it. There's market for vinyl. I'm glad to see that that's coming back, but there's no, so you make sure that what you're very good at is in fact something that the government is buying. And again, go deep, do really, really well in that one area. And I have another more practical example. We had a client that was an 8A, a $5 million 8A company, IT services company, that came to us and said, we $5 million in annual revenue. We want to grow to 15 million in 3 years. And that's not an unusual request. And that is definitely achievable. But when I started looking at their contracts, what they were doing. It was a little bit of everything. So as Mark had indicated, you know, in IT especially, there's so many different areas of IT. They were doing a little bit of help desk. They were doing some network services work, and then they were doing some application development. So I asked them to give me more information on their app development projects. As it turns out, they were using artificial intelligence to do fraud detection, and they had been doing it for a couple of years. It represented a very small percentage of their overall revenue, but they had hired data scientists and had actually gotten accolades for the work that they had done in fraud detection using artificial intelligence. And this was like 5 years ago. So it was before the tools were as mature as they are now. So basically my advice to them was ditch those old contracts, those low margin contracts, put all of your effort into artificial intelligence. And you know what? I think that the founders, who were both technical people, I think that they knew that, but I had to give them permission. They needed someone from outside the company who had practical experience saying, you will not regret it. Put all your efforts in there. And so a year later, the president called me and he said, Shirley, I just want to let you know that we are not on track to make the 15 million that we wanted to get in 3 years. But by the end of this year, which would have been 18 months, we're going to hit 20 million. So I'm so proud of them. I can give a lot of advice, but I know that there's a lot of hard work that goes into implementing strategy, and they put a lot of hard work into that, and it was very successful. So I'm very proud of them. Okay, the next aspect of strategy development is to be disciplined. So if you've done the research and you've carved out this niche, and let's say you've decided it's going to be artificial intelligence related to fraud. This is another thing with artificial intelligence. You can't just say I'm an artificial intelligence expert. Well, everybody is these days. Their tools are out there. But if you have applied artificial intelligence to solve an entrenched problem in the federal government, one of which is fraud, you're gonna find work. There's plenty of work out there. So focus your energy, focus your resources. Don't chase rabbits, because you're always going to get opportunities that come out of the blue, and they're even called bluebirds. Sometimes the bluebird works out. If it is a strategic opportunity and a strategic agency, by all means, you don't want to dismiss bluebirds. But most of the time, you don't want to chase rabbits. You want to focus your energy on your target agencies, target opportunities, contract vehicles. It takes a long time to get a prime position on a contract vehicle. And as you know, or you may not know, but the federal government has moved towards category management, which means that a lot of work is pushed through these master contract vehicles. And if you don't have a prime position on that, you will not see the task orders, and you will not be able to bid on those task orders unless you jump on a team as a subcontractor. So focus your resources and find good teaming partners. As a small business, you don't want to have 15 different teaming partners. You want to define what you're really looking for in a teaming partner, evaluate those partners, and select a few really good teaming partners that align with your strategy. You also want to have consistent decision making. So I provide to my clients a decision matrix that is customized to their strategy, because as they grow, and I'm talking about the CEOs, working with the CEOs, as they grow, they will add BD staff, and you want that BD staff to think and analyze the way you as the CEO think and analyze. If there were ways of doing business that have been very successful, it's just that you're spread too thin, you can't do it anymore. We take those best practices that have gotten the business to where it is now and put it into a decision matrix. The alignment comes in making sure that the entire company is aligned behind strategy. Your business development folks, your billable folks, people in your support positions, accounting, legal, operations, HR, and so forth. Everybody understands and is aligned behind your strategy. From a business development perspective, which is what I concentrate on when I talk about alignment, I'm talking about consistent, disciplined business development processes, systems, people, and incentive plans that align with strategy. So you can have the best strategy in the world, do all this research, document it, but if you don't feed it to your staff, if you don't make it a part of your culture, it will just, I used to say collect dust on the shelf, but nothing's on the shelf anymore. It's just in pixels, but it will not go anywhere. You will have spent a lot of time and money developing a strategy, and it's not executable if you don't have that alignment in your company. So that is the fourth area of strategy, is to be very disciplined to implement strategy. And it's not going to happen overnight. When I work with my clients, I give them a 2-year horizon. So they transform their thinking, their practices, the opportunities they pursue, their organizational structures, the systems that they use, the software that they use, the people that they hire. All that has to evolve over a period of time. And it's not unusual for it to take 2 years to completely pivot from a what would be a typical CEO-centric run organization to one in which there is an executive team, at least 1 or 2 people in executive team, a BD team, and so forth, kind of pivoting from 0 to 5 million to 10 million to 30 million. There are definitely tranches of growth that government contractors go through, and there's different thinking and processes that align with each one of those tranches. And then the last area of strategy is to evaluate and pivot. So measure everything. Return on investment from business development. A lot of companies measure P-win, but in addition to P-win, you should be measuring your compounded annual growth rate, your profit margin, your recompetes. There are a number of things. I use the balanced scorecard methodology. And Tim, I don't want to put you on the spot, but why don't you think about that? If there are some very specific executive information systems for government contractors that you have used in the past, I would love to hear about that. The second bullet there, while you're thinking about that, Tim, the second bullet here is to be diligent to market forces. We can put together a phenomenal, we can put together a phenomenal strategy, but sometimes things just happen in the marketplace. You know, COVID happened, and oh my gosh, all of a sudden there was all this stuff happening in federal contracting. Rules changed as a consequence. Money was going into different pockets and budgets. I mean, so anyway, I hope we don't have another COVID type of impact on the market, but there are all kinds of things: war, the economy, elections, they all impact strategy. So although we put together a 2-year plan, we assess that plan on an annual basis at a minimum. And if there are market disruptions, we'll do it even sooner. So adjust your strategy based upon that. Sometimes the force that is unpredictable also can be competition. So there's a new entrant into your area of the market. And of course, technology and AI is one of those disruptors. It's been coming for a while. I've been in IT for 100 years. And I can remember artificial intelligence back in the late 70s, but we didn't have the computing power to do all the computations. But the concept of artificial intelligence has actually been around for a long time. So even though it appears to be something very new, it's just maturing, getting to the point where the tools are more accessible to the general public. And that's going to have a huge impact on the government and the way the government supports the American people going forward. Okay, so that is my formal presentation. I'm going to stop sharing here now. And let's see. I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that you might have.
Hey, Shirley, I have a few questions. So I'll go ahead and be your first volunteer. What do small businesses most often understand about strategic planning?
Understand or misunderstand?
Oh, misunderstand.
Well, I think I kind of alluded to this, that they think it's fancy schmancy, and that it's something that's not necessary for them. They just want to win contracts. So I think that that is, when I'm talking to people in the marketplace, before they become clients, I'm talking to them about what I do. And sometimes I see their eyes glaze over. So I have to like bring them back and say, no, 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 this is not theory. This is something that will be the basis upon which you will build and grow your company.
So, and how long would you say it generally takes to develop a strategic plan?
The process that I take my clients through is 90 days. So it's not working every day for 90 days, but the elapsed time is 90 days. And I find that one of the reasons that it takes 90 days, which to me is not much time, but I know for small businesses, 90 days is a long time. You can get a lot done in 90 days. Because we do research, there's a lot of data that needs to be analyzed. So a lot of that time, not a lot, but probably a third of that time is conducting market research. Then we have to analyze it, synthesize it, and distill it down to actionable items.
And so how do you ensure that a strategic plan is being executed? Work with that with your clients, or how does that work?
Yes. So at the end of the 90-day engagement that I have with my clients, we have this wonderful data-driven plan that they've been involved in. So it's not like my team and I go off into some smoke-filled back room and then at the end of 90 days just present a plan. We're constantly interacting with our clients because we want to leverage their knowledge, their experience, their skills, where they want to go, what the market is telling them. So we combine what they know with what we know, with what the market is telling us, what the data is telling us. And that is synthesized into a plan. At that point, I give my clients an option. If you feel that you're ready to go, your team is ready to go, you're ready to execute, you can do it on your own. You don't need me anymore. God bless you. Love you. We've enjoyed the engagement. You don't need me anymore. That probably represents about 10% of the businesses that I work with. And, not to say that the plan is so complex that it can't be executed, but I think that we cover so many different areas in this strategic plan: agencies, opportunities, contract vehicles, teaming partners, people, systems, process. So much goes into standing up a very disciplined business development function in a government contracting firm, that I find that some of them just need coaching. So I will usually stay on as a coach to coach the CEO and his or her direct reports on implementing it a little bit at a time until they get their sea legs. And then once they do, they're on their own. I check in with them once a quarter and help, adjust, make sure that they're still going in the right direction. But that's it's really up to my clients to execute, and I'm there as a cheerleader.
And how often would you do that, or how often should a small business conduct a strategic planning?
So it really depends. If they're in a very stable part of the industry, let's say they do staffing, administrative staffing, that's not going to be very dynamic. So typically I will touch base with my clients once a year on that. Other areas like technology related areas, as I mentioned, with artificial intelligence and even cybersecurity, Sometimes we will do a mid-year correction, but sometimes just out of the blue, a client will call and say, and this is a real story, our CEO passed away last night, unexpectedly. And then it's all hands on deck. You know, not only is there grief, but the company has to pick up and move forward. And so I will jump in. I'll jump in and do whatever it takes to right the ship.
And have a question in chat, but I'll get to that in one moment. Like, how would you prepare for serendipity or bluebird opportunities?
Say that again. I was just reading a chat question. I'm sorry.
Oh, how would you prepare for serendipity or bluebird opportunities?
Yeah, I mentioned this a little bit, that you're always going to have serendipity. Things are just going to happen. An old friend, you know, comes to the, and you want to evaluate those bluebird opportunities related to your strategic plan. So if you have targeted 3 agencies that you're going to be going after, and this opportunity will get your foot in the door in one of those agencies where you don't already have a presence, you may want to consider it. You may want to consider it. But I would say that probably 80% of the time you don't want to go after them, but have a very disciplined process for evaluating those opportunities, those teaming partners, and so forth. So Mark, would you agree with that statement?
No, I think that's right on target. The only time I might consider is when the bluebird comes from somebody inside government. If a contracting officer calls you and says, listen, we're going to try to change this from a large award to a small award. I need 6 companies to send their capabilities so I can justify this. Get off your butt, get that stuff done.
Yes.
I saw George Price speak this morning. He's the Ostabu at State. And he said this really, really clearly. You know, you're going to be competing against a lot of companies that do exactly what you do. So niching down very clearly to find out what makes you different. And it can be something as simple as how your employees are perceived inside that agency. But you've got to find out what it is and then clearly enunciate it.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. But yes, if a contracting officer calls you and says, oh, we have some work for you, you don't want to say, oh, no, we don't do that.
No.
Most of the time, you don't want to say no.
Let me clarify. They aren't saying they have work. They're saying they want to make it a small, and you're a small.
Yeah.
So that you have a shot at it. Then it becomes a legitimate opportunity.
Yes.
But you're right.
Yes.
Bluebirds, they come sit on the end of your rifle. They aren't waiting at the bullet hole. They're on top.
Yep.
So when you shoot, you'll miss.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So Karen, there's a question in chat.
Yep. Do you want me to read it to you or read
Yes.
it to the group?
Yes.
Okay. Could you give some examples specifically in the IT space where you would consider or what you would consider as overreaching? My company does mostly IT work for the DoD, but we have been looking into getting into health IT. The general perception within the company is that it wouldn't be too much of a jump. We've done one health IT contract a couple of years back, but interested to hear your thoughts.
Okay. And Mark alluded to this earlier. There's so many areas of IT. There are a lot of people that do application development, do cybersecurity, and those sorts of things. So just because you have the technical skills does not mean that you're going to have a subject matter expertise to understand the application of those technical skills into another area of subject matter, of that subject matter. However, I want to qualify that by saying that if you have done work, I see that you've done work in DoD, if it's been the Defense Health Agency, and you do have some domain experience, then you can probably partner with someone in Health and Human Services, HHS. But the probability of just going to NIH or CDC or CMS with just DoD experience and winning a contract is probably pretty low, but I don't want to discourage you. It's not like there's no entrance into that marketplace. You can partner with others that have the relationships and the past performance. If you have a very specific area of technology expertise that complements what others are doing, they can piggyback you onto their team and then be better positioned to win contracts in the health area.
Shirley, you
Yes.
alluded to it earlier. You also need access to the vehicles that those agencies prefer. So it can be SOUP, it can be CIOSP, whatever the latest number is.
Mhm.
You know, if you want CMS, you're going to have to partner with somebody on Spark. There's a lot of preferred vehicles there, and you also have to be known before you come in.
Yep. So you can have the past performance and the relationships in the DoD, but I have found, and Mark, you can tell me if this is true or not. I can find that I have found that there are very few relationship overlaps between DoD and CMS. I mean, they're just completely different worlds, and they think that they are different worlds. So they downplay your experience in other domain areas. So people in DoD have a tendency to say, well, you don't know defense. You don't know us. You don't know our culture. You don't know the way we talk, all these sorts of things. So there's definitely those barriers, those more psychological, sociological barriers that need to be overcome for you to be taken seriously in a new agency.
That's exactly right. Companies that did business with HHS and NIH and CDC loved, you know, they were drooling when DHA was set up and they couldn't get in.
Right. Yeah, because it's really a military thinking type of organization.
Exactly.
I have one follow-up question for you. What would you say is the hardest part of implementing a strategic business development plan for small businesses?
By far, the hardest thing that small businesses have to do from a BD perspective is hire someone to do business development for them.
Mm.
I wish that I had a federal BD staffing agency, because there's so much demand for really good, competent, reliable people to do BD for small businesses. And they just, I don't know, Mark, I don't think they exist out there.
They exist, but the problem with small businesses in BD is BD takes a long time to come to fruition. You know, if you're thinking 6 to 12 months, you're thinking almost a year short. So giving people the runway they need is, my experience says, the biggest problem with small business hiring a talented BD person.
Yes. And I would also say the small business having realistic expectations and managing that resource appropriately, which is why I put together these strategic BD plans, so that when the BD person is hired and they come in, and they execute the plans that are well researched and that align with past performance and those sorts of things. So they don't have to, the BD person doesn't have to go through all of that. They already have a plan. They just need to execute on it. The other thing that I have developed over the last couple of years to help CEOs of small businesses is I have a federal business development knowledge assessment test, an online test to determine if these BD folks really, really do know the technical aspects of federal procurement. It doesn't test their personality or their fit for the company, but I can definitely 50 questions, and Mark, you would probably make a score 100 on it, but the 50 questions that you must answer for the CEO to know, the small business CEO to know if you really do understand the federal marketplace.
If that was a Jeopardy category, we could kick ass.
I know.
Someone asked about whether the recording will be available after this, and yes, Lindsay, I believe, do people have to be registered in Meetup to gain access? I mean, we do post it a few places, but Lindsay, I'll let you speak to that. You're the expert here.
Yeah, so it will go out, you're right, via the Meetup Messenger to all the Meetup group members. I'll be sharing with you a QR code shortly where you can join if you haven't already joined. It will also be posted on Karen and Streamline's LinkedIn page, as well as possible cross-posting with Shirley and some other pages. Did I miss anything?
No, you are the one who does all the hard work in terms of the posting, and so thank you. And thank you, Shirley, for being our speaker today. It was great to have you. We learned a lot. I learned a lot, at least, and happy to have you back again. And thanks for others, Mark and others who gave input. Appreciate that as well.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Karen and Shirley. Our Government Contractor Chat webinar series takes place every third Wednesday of each month from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be taking a break for the month of August and resuming our guest speaker lineup in September. You can scan the QR code on the screen now to join our meetup group, Government Contractor Chat, and visit our events page and calendar as more webinars and guest speakers are added. Also, please feel free to visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Streamline Government Contracts LLC to get our latest video releases and browse our collection of GovCon webinar videos. We want to thank you for being with us today, and we hope to see you next time.